Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Beto O'Rourke. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. We're going to have a great show again. We're going to talk about you know what. We're going to talk about you know what. It is about will Democrats take Congress, the House, and Senate in 2018. Let's discuss it. What do you think? But before I get started, I want to remind all the audience that this is a call-in show. You can call us at 646-716-5812. You want to be a part of the discussion and get on air, make your point, agree, disagree, do whatever you want. We listen to every single side of the equation here. We don't throw people off, and we're very kind with folk. Give us a call, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Also, I want to remind all the people listening that if we're going to get progressive shows going, if we're going to get the progressive movement going, if we're going to allow folks from the progressive sphere to get attention, not only on TV, because we know a lot of progressives aren't getting attention on TV, but through alternative media sources, what we're going to need to have you guys do is always share. In other words, these programs, we have to use our social media mechanisms, our emails, our everything, email, social media, infonet, all the other pieces. Sometimes the mind goes blank when you're trying to remember all these different platforms that we have. Please do, however, share like nothing before. That's the way we're going to make it. Welcome aboard, Roxanne Stewart Gillette. Anyhow, the title of the program today again is Will Democrats Take Congress, the House and Senate in 2018? Let's discuss. And again, 646-716-5812. Give me a call. Subtitle, Democrats winning is not a foregone conclusion. Anyhow, these days, I don't know how to feel about progressives' success in the 2018 election. The generic poll shows Democrats from a +2 lead to a +11. I mean, that's great. I mean, 2006, I believe, we were probably at a +5 or something like that, and we slaughtered everything. We took everything, and we didn't only take everything. We had a veto-proof majority in the Senate, and we had a they couldn't. What is it when they can't in the Senate when we had 60 votes. We had the 60 votes necessary to have a cloture-free Senate. That was the type of win that we had in 2006. And that is the kind of win we should have, if not bigger, this time. What I meant was veto-proof. It's not veto-proof. Come on, folks. Help me out here in the Facebook thing. What is it that when the Senate tries to hold up a bill? Wow, brain fart. Anyhow, the generic poll shows Democrats from a +2 lead to a +11 lead. They should take over. Filibuster proof. That's what it is. Filibuster proof. When I am on the ground with my different progressive activist groups, I feel a blue wave coming. I honestly feel that blue wave coming. Roxanne from Florida, welcome aboard. Joe Rosenthal, thank you for reminding me it's filibuster proof. Though I think I got it before you put it out there. You know, sometimes you get that little brain fart. Anyhow, I feel a blue wave coming, but when I look at Democratic messaging, I don't see the catalyzing narrative on which the blue wave will build. The shallowness means the wave could be an event away from becoming a ripple. What do I mean by it can be an event away from becoming a ripple? All kind of things happen just before an election. A terrorist event could happen. We could have something with the stock market failure. And if we don't have a narrative preparing our people for those types of failures and making sure that there is absolutely no way progressives can take the blame for these failures that could occur just before the election. Because, again, as I mentioned, the shallowness of our narrative, that could present a problem. Let me give an example here. We have let's say that the Congress is attempting to get monies, more monies for defense or more monies for whatever, and Democrats balk at that, and some terroristic event occurs right before the election. The great right-wing spin machine is so good that they could make it look like that is the fault of progressives, that's the fault of Democrats, and if those weenies had done what we wanted, then things wouldn't have occurred, so we can't elect them and have them take over Congress. Let's say the stock market falls. Well, they didn't allow us to make the bill the way we wanted to make the bill, so therefore the reason for this big stock market failure is not on us, it's on them, because they clipped our wings. And I could go over issue over issue that in October something horrendous is going to happen. People are going to get their new health care bills. That health care bill is going to be huge. And if we don't have the proper narrative, what we'll be telling these folks right now is to say, hey, wait a minute, you see those health care bills that you have now? It is high because we were not completely able to overturn Obamacare. And the reason why we could not overturn the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is because of these guys, and these guys stopped us from doing it. You got to bring us all in because we are going to save the day. There are so many pieces of the narrative that these guys can turn in their direction because we don't have an absolute narrative to go out there and say, hey, right now in other words, we have to have a forward-looking narrative. We have to look into the future. We can't be looking back and saying how bad this guy is. We have to be out there given that narrative now. We ought to be out there saying every day, your bill on October for healthcare is going to skyrocket, and it's going to skyrocket because of X, Y, Z that the Trump administration did and is currently doing. It will be up. You got to get them out of there so that when it occurs, people already associate high bills, Republicans. High bills, Republicans. People are very binary in their thinking in these issues at election time. Likewise, if a terrorist event occurs, hi, Karen Kutlin Wright, welcome aboard. Michael Davis, welcome aboard, and all the others coming on. Here's the deal. When you're out there, you must have the narrative going. Terrorist event occurs in October or whatever. We have to show that the lax activity in the Trump administration, in the Justice Department, as well as in the other departments, the Homeland Security Department, you know, they have a child, somebody with the experience of a child running the Homeland Department right now. I don't remember her name, but that has to be associated with a failing Homeland Security, so that if and when a terrorist act occurs, immediately people will associate, I was told that the Homeland Security was not working correctly, and look at what we have, a terrorist attack. Likewise, the State Department is in shambles, so they're not forward-looking in their working and association with other state departments around the world. So therefore, the intelligence data is incomplete, and thus allow these things to happen. Terrorist attack caused by whom? Republicans. Same thing with the stock market. These guys have blown up the economy by overheating the economy by passing a tax cut that was undeserved, first of all, and that was not necessary, secondly, and that also blew a hole in the budget, which means the government is going to be fighting for the same dollars private sector is going to be fighting for investment, and that means interest rates are going to be high. And how is that going to affect you? All these folks that have credit cards right now, they're going to start seeing their interest rates go up. Their interest rates, as they go up, it's a tax on them. It's a further tax on all the balances that you're taking. But worse, it's yet another transfer of wealth from you to the wealthy people who own the banks. So, folks, these are narratives that should be out there now. These are narratives that should be out there every day, and groups like, programs like mine are putting these narratives out, right? But how many people can we reach? We're not very well funded. We don't have our people, and that's one of the reasons I tell folks all of the times, you have to support progressive media. I mean, if you want to support this group, this progressive platform as well, Politics Done Right, See that link underneath there? Go ahead. I just placed that up because I just learned about the Patreon platform. Go ahead and support these organizations. It is very, very important if we are to stay alive and if we are going to stay informing folks of the realities that you're not going to see on MSNBC, CBS, NBC, Fox, or any one of these guys. None of this narrative has been out there consistently telling folks, prepare for what's going to happen. Prepare so that when it happens, the perfect right-wing machine would have been outgunned. That we would have outgunned them by already preparing you, by already preparing that, well, not you. If you're listening to this program, you probably already are sufficiently progressive to know a lot of these things that I'm saying. Just articulating and catalyzing them in this manner is something that we have to do. So please remember, if you believe in this type of thing, you need to support these programs. All right, let me continue with the introduction. I think it is time for us all to create our own localized narratives that are more local. In other words, progressives should nationalize the narrative of Republican incompetence in governing, but we must localize what local politicians are going to do. So in other words, we have to be smart enough with our narrative. We have to take advantage of the incompetence that is occurring with Republican leadership all over the country. We can talk about Texas, where every year they drop funding for schools and force those fundings on to local communities. When they put it on to local communities have to raise their rates of income tax, which means more of the taxing goes on the everyday person as opposed to on corporations that should, come on. When you educate people and those people go work for corporations, you are actually supplying the corporation with a service paid for by taxpayer dollars. So it is due that corporations should play a huge part in education, because you are educating people who work for corporations to make shareholders money and to pay executives. It's not a gift that we want to charge corporations higher in education. If I pay taxes and Joe Blow gets educated, that is nothing for me immediately or personally. But when Joe Blow gets educated and he goes and works for a corporation, that's some education that corporation didn't have to do. So a lot of times the GOP spins corporations paying taxes as, oh, look how unfair they are. Double taxation. The people they pay have to pay taxes, and yet the corporation as an entity has to pay taxes. Well, folks, remember, corporations are their own living being. In fact, they have something known as personhood. What that means is a corporation, for all practical purposes, have a driver's license. No, not really, but they have an identity of their own. You can kill a corporation. You can birth a corporation. Okay? When I say kill, it means it's out of existence, and everything that is associated with that corporation, c'est la vie. It's gone. So let's be smart in how we prepare narratives in this election and all elections going forward. Nationalize to show the general incompetence of the GOP. We take a look at an irresponsible bill that was passed, the tax cut bill that is going to overheat the economy, and not only overheat the economy, but cause interest rates to rise because of an inordinate amount of debt that's going to be created from this. Number two, remember as soon as they got in, how they put a real wrench into the Affordable Care Act that has thrown a whole lot of people off of health care, and then not only thrown a lot of people off of health care, but has really messed up the entire system. These are narratives that should be out there every day. Anyhow, I think it is time for all of us to create our own localized narratives that are more local. In other words, progressives should nationalize the narrative for Republican incompetence in governing and localize what politicians are going to do. I saw this kind of action recently with Beto O'Rourke's campaign in the Greenspoint area of Houston last Saturday. I'm as progressive as I'm more progressive than most. And I noticed, I watched Beto O'Rourke in action and the way he handled the most progressive issues in a state like Texas. And I must say, he never backed off from the progressive issues. He gave a necessarily pragmatic answer to some of these responses. And if you go to my blog, I think he's running a very smart campaign. And this is one person who could be the first Democratic senator from Texas in a long, long, long time. No offense to any other person running against this man, but I mean, if any other Democrat running against this man performs, hey, that will be wonderful. If you go through the machinations it's going through, if you're putting in the investment in time and not taking PAC money and all these other issues that he's doing. Anyway, he has a decidedly progressive message and made sure certain wink and nods were there to prevent the right wing from caricaturing him. Again, let me repeat that. This is very important. He has a decidedly progressive message and made sure certain wink and nods were there to prevent the right wing from caricaturing him. In other words, his narrative, the way he speaks, the words he uses, was made sure that when whatever commercial you make of him, and I try to do it. I tell you that. I try to do it. I even try to, let's say there's a particular county that doesn't like single payer, right? I said, okay, I interviewed him. And not only did I interview him, but I taped the person who asked him about Medicare for all single payer. And if you are going to cut that narrative that he gave to try to make a commercial to caricature him, I ask you to do it and try to do it. Because I tell you what, while cutting the videos up, I kept on, one of the things I said to myself was, it is great how he speaks because you won't be able to create a caricature like, let's say you did with some of these other politicians that like Carrie. Remember when Carrie said, I voted before, I voted for it before I didn't, or I didn't vote for it after I voted for it, or something like that? There is nowhere in his narrative that I could find that you could caricature him in that manner. That is a politician that is becoming very well groomed. And if you're looking for a winner, that is the kind of things that you're looking for in a politician. And again, no matter who we elect, of course, we're going to make sure to keep them to the fire. Now, from the news feed, according to USA Today, a Texas woman died from flu complications after deciding not to take flu medications because her copay was too expensive. Second grade teacher Heather Holland, 38, just 38, was prescribed Tamiflu earlier this month after coming down with the flu. Her husband, Frank, told the Weatherford Democrat that she was going to pick up the prescription but thought the $116 copay was too expensive. She thought it cost too much, so she didn't get it, said Frank. I ended up getting it for her on Thursday. Frank told WFAA last Monday that his wife became septic. That is kind of when the disease actually jumped into the bloodstream. After being rushed to the emergency room on February 2nd, dialysis treatment didn't work. I was with her for more than half of my life, Frank said in a brief interview. This is in the country that many on the right like to claim that we have the best medical system in the world. We only have the best medical system in the world for the 1% who can afford whatever is necessary to cure them. But for the masses, this is one of the worst. This is one of the worst medical systems in the world. It's ranked, I think it's 17th in mortality. Don't quote that number exactly. Go to Oxfam to get the correct number, but it's somewhere in that region. Second item on the news feed. According to CNBC, economist Stephen Roach says the economy is an accident waiting to happen. Remember that accident we had with the stock market a few days ago when he appeared on CNBC? He said that. The way I look at the fundamentals is they are extremely fragile, and we are kidding ourselves every time there's a correction to say, well, the economy is sound. Roach said it's not sound at all when seen through the lens of savings. Think about that. Third item on the newsreel. According to Salon, President Donald Trump and the White House have been claiming that they didn't know about Staff Secretary Rob Porter's alleged history of domestic abuse, but the head of the FBI just proved them wrong. The FBI submitted a partial report on the investigation in question in March and then completed a background investigation in July. FBI Director Christopher Wray told Congress Tuesday, soon afterwards, we received requests from a follow-up inquiry, and we did the follow-up and provided that information in November. And then we administratively closed it in January. And then earlier this month, we received some additional information and we passed it along this month in January along as well. Ray's testimony Tuesday completely contradicted the White House ever-changing story on the man responsible for determining what was and wasn't seen by the president, Porter, that is. The White House long claimed that Porter was fired, gone in their words 40 minutes after Chief of Staff John Kelly found out that Porter's ex-wives alleged the assault. Ray's testimony also pointed out the fact that the White House sat on damaging information about a key staffer refusing to fire him until the allegations came to light. In that wake, Porter's firing, Trump actually came to his defense, telling reporters he says it's innocent. Yet, Porter's gone. Kelly's perceived cover-up is unraveling right before our eyes, one White House official told Axios. Kelly's claim to have fired Porter right away has been disproven. Reporters were told at that time many senior officials wanted Porter to stay and fight as early as Wednesday. And now it has been reported, and I don't remember where, but it has been reported that this guy was actually up for a promotion. This man was actually up for a promotion. Fourth and last item on our newsreel, and this is funny. According to Haaretz, that's the Israeli rag, Israel police will recommend indicting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in 2 corruption investigations. 2 cases are the so-called Case 1000, in which Netanyahu is suspected of accepting lavish gifts from wealthy benefactors in return for advancing their interests. That's numero uno. And Case 2000, which alleges that Netanyahu tried to strike a deal that would have provided him with positive coverage in Israel's second largest newspaper, Yediat Arnaf, in exchange for hurting its free rival, Israel Hayom. According to the police, after Netanyahu was elected, the volume of gifts he received rose significantly. Sounds like somebody, don't it? So it increased significantly. Together they are valued at 1 million shekels, around $280,000. Regarding Milshan, the police said that in return for the gifts, Netanyahu pushed for the so-called Milshan law, which cuts taxes for Israelis, returning to Israel after spending time abroad. Sounds familiar again? Remember our tax bill, what it did? It allowed these guys to bring in all that money. You know, anyway, which cuts taxes for Israelis returning to Israel after spending time abroad. According to the police, Netanyahu acted against public interest. In the days leading up to the police recommendations, Netanyahu has openly questioned the integrity of the police commissioner. Sound familiar? And another high-ranking officers tasked with the investigations. Look, no wonder Trump and Netanyahu get along so well. They are both crooks. And yes, I said it, they are both crooks. Okay, before I go to the blog of the week, which really isn't my blog of the week, but really mostly it was mostly put together by a guy at Daily Kos. I'm actually using his blog post as the blog of the week. But before that, let me check and see what our kind, great listeners are talking about as I bring it up on my system here. Let's see, wrong one. Let's go. Okay. Anyhow, who do we have here? We have, there are too many issues the left can coalesce around besides just Trump. You're absolutely right, and I think I brought you first of all, those 3 items I brought you to the narrative, meaning terrorism, healthcare, terrorism, high price of healthcare, and what was the third one that I said? Terrorism, high price of healthcare and stock market. Those are 3 issues that will actually come to pass, very likely before the election. We should have already started seeding that narrative into people's brains. We haven't. So all of you listening, first of all, remember to share this program. But all those people that are listening to this, put that out in the narrative. When you're on Facebook and you hear stories about terrorism, potential stock market falls, potential hikes in prices, you need to share those stories. You need to put in there, brought to you by the Republican Inc. Brought to you by Republican Inc. Why? Because that's the truth. These items are truthful. Remember, politics done right, we don't do fallacies. We only do the truth. Okay, Michelle Davis is that's one that I just read. Michael Davis, Trump is already alluding to an event to bring everyone together. He's been doing that for some time. Absolutely so. Karen, come right. Oh, hi Karen, how you doing? Welcome aboard. Okay, Michael Davis again. Too many people by Fox News. We need to mobilize like crazy to overcome all the gerrymandering, voter suppression, and the right-wing propaganda machine. And of course, you need to remember, my dear friend, that we also have to mobilize against what is certain to be the Russians using a lot of bots. Those are where they're going to control Facebook and control Twitter and all of that. It's already growing. I don't know. I already have several we like to call them those people that just kind of follow you and everything that you say. They trolls. I've already been trolled, and many folks are already being trolled, which means as soon as you write something, they're out there to put something out there in you and try to get folks to disregard what you're saying. Don't worry about that. Disregard it. Let's see. Progressives will no doubt blow it like they usually do by failing to go out and vote for candidates that only support 99% of the agenda. Robert L. Mark. Robert, that is our job to prevent, right? I mean, those of us that are, we all have friends, we all have circles, we all have good friends, acquaintances, and all of that are following us on Facebook. I have several thousand people following my sphere of influence in this. You have several thousand. Everybody have several thousands, hundreds, or whatever the amount is. But it eventually becomes thousands. Okay, each of you, believe it or not, a lot of it is going to be overlapping influences. But I can tell you, you are influential. And if you start on your own Facebook page, on your own Twitter, on your own Instagram, and all these things, telling messages, putting out messages that I am going to vote for somebody even if they're not 99% as progressive as I am, or if they're 75% progressive and their opponent is 10% progressive. It doesn't take rocket science to understand who you're going to vote for. I've always stated in the primaries, you go as progressive as you can. I have a corollary to that, which is if you're always go for the most progressive person that has a high probability of winning. And what I mean by that is I don't mean that necessarily that progressive has a higher probability of winning than the less progressive person. I mean one that just can win. In other words, if person A is not a real progressive but can win in a general election, and person B is a real progressive but they can't win as much as that false progressive, but they can win, you vote for the real progressive. And then you fight like hell in the real part of the election, the general election, to make sure that person wins. Let me refresh here to get, because I think I saw some more scrolling out there before I get to the blog of the week. And folks, remember this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. It's right there on your screen, so give me a call, guys. You know, let's see what else is there. Let's arrange these. Folks, sometimes I miss your messages because Facebook has a way of not arranging the messages chronologically. I don't quite know how they do it sometimes. Okay, let's see. There are too many issues left can coalesce around. Yes, we did that. Trump is already alluding to an event being occurring. Yes. All right, too many people numbed by Fox News. We need to mobilize like crazy. Yes, we are going to do that. Okay. Anyhow, let's get busy and go to the blog of the week, and I'm going to have a little commentary on the blog of the week after reading it.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the blog of the week was written by my friend at Daily Coast, Dardagan, and the title of his blog is Republicans Are Losing Their Ability to Withstand a Democratic Wave. Republicans are losing their ability to withstand a Democratic wave. I love Dardagan. I love the guy, but I don't like the title. The reason I don't like the titles, here it says again, Republicans are losing their ability to withstand a Democratic wave. Whenever you speak like that, it makes a whole lot of people believe they can just simply coast into a win. And you can never do that. But his blog is fact-based. And here it goes. Democrats are gradually but unmistakably chipping away at the artificial advantages the Republican Party rigged for itself to protect itself from the votes of the majority of American people. From the New York Times via MSN.com, Hear what it says. Slowly but surely, the considerable structure advantages like incumbency, geography, and gerrymandering that give the Republicans a chance to survive a so-called wave election or fade in, giving Democrats a clearer path to a House majority in November. Republicans formerly accustomed to the formidable protection racket of incumbency and gerrymandering have suddenly found the idea of spending more time in their families strangely appealing in the face of Trump-enraged Democrats who, in the words of Ted Cruz, would crawl over glass to vote this November. I sure hope that is true. Ted Cruz said they would crawl. Democrats are waiting to crawl if over glass to vote in November to get rid of them. Don't be fooled by when somebody like Ted Cruz says that. A lot of times he's saying that because he wants everybody, every progressive to think, well, I guess if it's a little bit too difficult for me to vote, I don't need to vote because all them damn Democrats they're going to go vote anyway, so my one measly vote doesn't matter. No, folks, I don't like to hear these things. You got to go vote. No matter what, you've got to go vote. In addition to the overall offensiveness of Trump himself, recent court decisions invalidating or curbing the GOP's partisan gerrymander in Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania have contributed to these sentiments. 4 court rulings have softened or even torn up Republican gerrymandering in 4 big states, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and most recently Pennsylvania, where the state Supreme Court struck down the congressional map last month. The decision in Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia have already cost the Republicans a net of 3 House seats, while generally eroding their position elsewhere in those states, giving Democrats better opportunities in 2018. Lest I remind you what occurred in Virginia. It was supposed to be a slight win for Democrats. It was a landslide where they almost took over the House. I think they call it in Virginia the House of Delegates because it's really not a state, it's a Commonwealth. It's too early to have a good idea of how much Republicans might lose in Pennsylvania, but it is reasonable to expect that the new map will cost the party at least 1 seat and erode its position in several others. 1 seat? If you have a wave election, it shouldn't be 1 seat. So let's be talking getting folks out to vote. Raw fury directed at Trump and his Republican enablers in the Congress has also resulted in an unusually high number of quality Democrats recruits in traditionally Republican, predominantly white working class districts. And here's what it says. The Republican incumbency advantage has diminished in another way. Democratic recruitment and fundraising. A strong Democratic recruit like a military veteran or an elected official can cut that advantage, especially with strong funding numbers. California is looking particularly perilous for Republicans this November, as it mirrors a trend of Republican incumbents nationally that are either jumping ship or finding themselves outspent by a lot. Moreover, more than 40 House Republican incumbents were outraised in the final quarter of 2017 by one or several of their Democratic opponents, according to the latest round of fundraising numbers. And by the way, you know in California how it goes, right? Everybody goes into the race, and just the top 2 winners go into the election. So, you know, you could actually have Democrat running against Democrat. The one thing you have to be careful of is diluting the vote where you give somebody else a chance to get in. So they better be careful with that. And that group, more than a dozen, had less cash on hand than their Democratic challengers. Dana Rohrabacher, who cruised to re-election since the late 1980s, is facing 2 well-funded Democrats. Remember, that is Russia's best congressman is from Russia. Senor Rohrabacher. Anyhow, Harley Ruda, a businessman, and Hans Kermsted, a stem cell researcher, topped Rohrabacher in fundraising last quarter, while Ruda now holds a cash-on-hand advantage over the congressman. Rohrabacher's traditionally Republican district in Orange County narrowly backed Hillary Clinton in 2016. What does it tell you? In as much as that district has been going Republican for a long time, the fact that it went for Hillary in 2016 and we're still in era Trump, that means that it's a darn good possibility he has lost he will lose his seat. The Democratic bench is less deep in some of the wealthier, more highly educated Republican district, but this disadvantage is being compensated for by donations coming from people that live in those districts who are appalled by Trump and eager to make a statement in whatever way they can. I hate when they make a statement like that. I understand what he means, though. In other words, he said, there's not much talent out there. Yes, there's a lot of talent in those wealthy districts. Go get a professor to run. Go get somebody. I don't think they have the restricted laws that we have in Texas here. I had a good young man that was ready to run against Ted Poe and when he decided, I'm sorry, not Ted Poe. It was on a state, Huberty. He was ready to run against Huberty. He's a 27-year-old millennial, and we really are trying to prop millennials up into running now. We want millennials taking over the country. The boomers have decimated their futures, and we need them to get up there and start doing the millennials. Are you listening to me? Let me tell you something, guys. Baby boomers are running scared right now as far as with their futures, after they've done taken a whole lot from you by falling for the crap Republicans and others talk about. Now it is your time to come back to get into governance and remedy what has occurred. I'm not saying that you're coming in for revenge or anything like that. Just remedy what has occurred. And remedying what has occurred is mean the redistribution of all that monies that baby boomers were fooled into giving to the top 1% and 2%. Take it back. That is where we should be. Take it back. Get into power and do your job. Take back the stolen money from the 1% and 2%ers and do what needs to be done. And people say, oh, there's not even close to enough money. Folks, math does not lie. The money is there. It's just in a form that people like to claim is an income. The money is there. All the stolen money from the middle class is still here. It's still here. You just have to go take it. Anyhow, the Democratic bench is less deep in... I read that already. The Democrats don't have much of a bench at all in many of the well-educated but traditional Republican districts where Mr. Trump struggled the most. Here it is, the Democratic fundraising that is most impressive. Last quarter, 134 Democrats in 83 districts raised at least $100,000 in individual contributions. Those successes have been disproportionately concentrated in well-educated areas. This seems to be shaping up as an election that will be swayed by most educated people in the country as opposed to the last one. I love you, Dart, again, but that's a terrible statement. You don't do that. What does well-educated mean? Because you've been to college and, look, I'm a well-educated man. I'm an engineer. I program computers. I've designed software. I've done all these great things. Do you think I look at my garbage men any differently? That is one of the... when Crystal Ball came onto my show, Crystal Ball made an important statement. Crystal Ball said, Democrats are seen as elitist people who talk down to other people. And she's absolutely right about that. And I've written quite a bit about that on Daily Kos as well. And sometimes I get accused of sounding like the right wing when I say we have to stop being elitist. Why? I can speak. I can say, I can speak in all kinds of languages that, based on X, Y, Z, we should look at the Laffer curve occurring this way and whatever. Or I can try to talk to people. The average person that just going there trying to make a damn living. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong somebody just wanting to make a living and somebody who wants to achieve higher education because there's something else that they want to do. And when you make a statement like, this seems to be shaping up as an election that will be swayed by the most educated people in the country as opposed to the last one, what you're saying is, well, the educated people are going to save the country because those buffoons elected Donald Trump. That is not the way that you look at these issues, and that's the reason Democrats have been in trouble a whole lot. We come across as saying, everybody, look, I know a whole lot of stupid Democrats. Okay, they're just Democrats, and they vote party line, and they do exactly as we do. It's not that they're highly educated or anything like that. No, it is that they're Democrats, and they just pull the Democratic ball. If they were these same people, if they were Republicans, they will pull the Republican ball. And in fact, that is what the Trump machine used on us. There are a lot of Obama voters who voted for Trump. Trump just pulled a lever there that convinced them, along with some of the Russian propaganda, what they had, things that touch certain buttons. And in touching those certain buttons, it worked. And don't tell me about how uneducated people, because if you take a look at what occurred in Alabama, with 71% of, I think it was, I don't want to quote the bad numbers, but if you look at the percentage of people who vote Republican, there are a whole lot of very intelligent people who are making $200,000 and $300,000. Not a lot of money in the aggregate when you look at where the power structure really is. You know, a lot of people making $200,000, $300,000. They vote Republican because they think it is better for them. It's going to be no. They're just guardians of the gate. They're just guardians of the gate. They're not really. They make good money to what that guy making $50,000 sees. Oh, that person making $300,000, that person making $500,000. It's a lot. But you're just being paid enough to be the stooge. Okay? I mean, you can use that money, of course, to do good. Which what you should do is, of course, hey, that you should be using a lot of that money to fund the organizations that are trying to make this a better place. And bring down the big guys who are using you. You can use them. I'm talking about our high wage earners right now that think they're part of the plutocracy but are just the guardians of the plutocracy. You could be some of our most effective activists because you can make a difference. You have the wherewithal to make a difference. You are the ones who can sustain the progressive actions. You are the ones who can help those progressive move forward. You are the ones who can support the politics done right, the TYT, and all these other guys that are out there trying to make things better. And guess what? It's not like you're going to get hurt. It's not the case. But anyhow, so we have to be careful with our elitism. Connor Lamb is running for Congress in special election to be held in March 13 for Pennsylvania 18th Congressional District against a Republican named Rick Saccone. Republicans nationally are terrified of what a Democratic victory in district could portend for November. And I'm not sure if he's going to win that district. I am not really sure. And my contention is that if he loses that district, because there's so much hype on a district he should lose, that it just may demoralize some. So while a lot of people are putting a whole lot into that race in Pennsylvania, I am not, because that is a race that Democrats justifiably should lose. I mean, we may win it, but if we lose it, it's no big deal because of how that particular district is gerrymandering. Anyhow, folks, that is the blog of the week, and I kind of expanded on what my friend had to say in that blog of the week because I think that was illustrative of that was a very good informationally, but it also had what I consider critical errors in putting that message out. That message, this particular blog post did great on Daily Kos. It did wonderfully well on Daily Kos because Daily Kos is a liberal, very liberal, progressive site with a bunch of very highly intelligent folk. But we have to be able to reach folks on a carnal level, on a level where they are, and that is sometimes where we fail. All right, let's go ahead and bring in our regular here. John, come on into the show. And folks, remember this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. You don't want to have John doing all the talking. A lot of you can be calling in right now. Don't fear calling in because we like to talk to you. John, come on in.
Good afternoon, Egberto. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, my friend. Talk to me.
Okay, I don't know if it was a year or two ago, I was telling you that it's actually pronounced D'Artagnan. It's
I screwed up all the
Alexander
time,
Dumas.
Yes. I screwed up every time.
Yeah, it's a character in the Three Musketeers,
Right.
D'Artagnan. Anyway, no big deal.
Repeat it again. Repeat it again.
Let me see. D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan. Man, I tell you. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. I think that the reason why he's, I mean, I agree with you about, people shouldn't be catering to wealthy people. Mm-hmm. But if you actually spend a lot of time studying this, like I have, this is just factual. This is factual. There are 23 districts that Clinton won, mm-hmm. and out of the 23 districts, there are two very strong characteristics that a Republican won also in Congress in 2016. And there are two very strong characteristics that talk, that characterize these 23 districts. One is they either have a high Latino population, and in some of them it's a combination of Latino and Black and Asian races, like a lot of races in California are like that. Mm-hmm. 2 races in Florida, the 26th and the 27th district are like that. But most of them are affluent places. I mean, there's just no denying that. And
let me
I think I understand what you're saying,
right?
But this is just factual.
Yes.
This is very much a factual thing, and so.
Let me tell you, first of all,
if you look at,
John, hold on a second, John. I think I said that. The reason I read is Dara. First of all, his Dara is fact based. His Dara is absolutely correct. However, being correct isn't everything, right? I mean, I could see Fox News picking up this diary and making it into and turning it into something that says, you see what they think about you. Now the intelligent ones are going to go to vote. Are you going to let that happen? And the truth of the matter is, there are more people that are not the as well educated that you're talking about than they are, and some are flippable. So those are the things that I'm talking about. I like the stance that Crystal Ball took, because she's saying, look, some of the richest people on this planet are some of the nicest people, and they don't go around flaunting what they have and making others feel lowly because of what they don't have. So I think that is what I was more going at. And I think the guy is fine. Because he's just factual, I just think it wasn't a political writing that he had there, just a factual writing. But if he goes ahead, that factual writing could go ahead and be used and said, this is how they think. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay, so just a reminder, there are already 26 districts where there have been polling where Democrats lead, and all they need is 24 to flip the House.
Right.
And so I just want to throw that out there. I mean, a naysayer would say, well, they're basically saying generic ballot versus the Republican.
Right.
And if you actually put the name of the Democrat, it decreases the numbers. And there's some truth to that. Mm-hmm. And so that's a valid point. One thing, I mean, I agree with what you and Crystal Ball are saying as far as motivating people to come out to vote. But also, you just have to look at, the dynamics of voting. And, Democrats are almost, are very strong, even in red states. If you look at, the reason why Jones won, he won because of the big city turnout, mostly. I mean, and also in the Black Belt,
right.
Where, Black voters, turned out in good numbers,
right.
Very similar numbers to Obama, and somewhat higher to some degree.
Right.
So I'm just saying they're strong in cities. They usually win cities, and and also Republicans in general have a tendency to win rural areas.
Right.
Okay, now this is different in certain states that are strong, like let's say in Massachusetts or some parts of New York. Mm-hmm. But I mean, and so the districts that are going to be more swing districts are districts that are in the suburbs that have a combination of parts of the city and parts of rural areas. And so, a lot of these areas like Virginia 10th, Barbara Comstock's district, mm-hmm. a very wealthy district that in Northam won by, I think, 9 points, in the governor's race. And so I'm just, I agree with what you're saying as a matter of fact, but I'm also saying, what he's saying is also factual, and so I think we have to motivate everybody, but let's just be honest about it. Now, then again, that's what they were saying about Ossoff, because that Ossoff race was only Trump only won the district by 1.5, and so there was a lot of hope coming into the race that he was going to win, and he only lost it by 3.8, but Clinton still did better. And so
Well, I think that
So,
Ossoff race tells
you know,
a different
I just
story.
think.
I think
Go ahead.
Ossoff race tells a different story. I think the Ossoff race was this guy fundamentally misunderstanding who he needed to activate in that district. Again, whenever you go Republican light, people vote for the Republican. If you go ahead with a new message, you have a better chance of winning. And I think that is why Ossoff lost. I think those 3 points there, Ossoff could have recovered if he had activated a few more people that didn't vote based on his message. But I don't know if you remember near the end of the election, you had a whole lot of people complaining about what Ossoff sounded like. But John, let me ask you to hold one quick second. Let me bring another caller in, and then we'll continue, my friend. Let's go to line 832. Come on in, 832. And before, let me give a shout out to Nisha Randall. Nisha, one of our top activists here in Houston, Texas, working with Indivisible Houston. And before I go to 832, let me also give a shout out to Marianne Richards. Marianne says, I'm in Tampa, Florida. Hashtag resist. Let's see if there's anything else I want to call out. Anybody else I want to call out? Okay, go on, 832.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are.
All right, it's John Rosenthal calling.
Mr. Rosenthal,
So,
talk
first
to
time
me.
caller in a long time.
You're a first-time caller in a long time. Talk to me.
Long time listener.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So I actually I want to speak a little bit about the projected the polling on the generic polling.
The generic polling. Go ahead.
So while it's true that we're seeing generic polling right now between +2 and +11 for Democrats, I think in the races where the grassroots activism is on the ground taking hold, we're seeing much larger swings than that in some of those races, right? So there have been shocking victories by progressives in deeply red areas. So I'm going to assert that some of that polling, the generic polling, may actually go the opposite way. We may have a greater blue wave, just on the caveat that you have to have the grassroots ground game activism working.
Well, you
right?
know what? I am happy for and by the way, John Rosenthal is here in Texas. He's running in the state elections, HD 135, I believe, and he's going to shock folks when those activists come through for him, and he becomes that state senator 135. So let's make that happen, John. But don't laugh. Let's just make it happen.
Definitely. State representative.
State
I'm a
representative. Let's make him
district,
state
not
representative, John Rosenthal. Let me tell you something, folks. I understand what John is saying, and sometimes John, meaning John from San Antonio, gives me a hard time for my sort of democratic pessimism, and that is because we have a tendency to wane. What I want to hear is what John, here, the guy running for state representative, John, Jon, is that I want to see the activists continue on the ground and do exactly what he is saying. Mobilize the people to go out there and vote. Because really, there are more progressives in this country than otherwise. The problem is that they don't vote. Let me give a classic example. Beto O'Rourke was out here in the Greenspoint area. Okay? Keisha Thomas, great activist in this area. She got 500 people to come out, more than 500 people to come out to that thing, right? Now, the Greenspoint area is a mostly minority area. Latinos and black people live in that area in strong numbers. But most of the people that, even though it was a mixed crowd, let me not get that, it was a balanced crowd. It looked like America. It just didn't look like that area. And what we have to do is, whereas let's look at groups that I'm a part of, let's say Indivisible Houston or the Democratic Socialists of America or these other groups that are out there in Montrose, they're out there in the Heights, they're out there in all these areas in town working to mobilize and get people voting. I'm going to give a call out to all these organizations that I'm also working with and saying, this is where you have to be. Those people in the Heights are coming to vote. Those people in the university area is coming to vote. Those people in Montrose are coming to vote. You got to come down here to Greenspoint. You have to go to East Houston. You have to go to Northeast Houston, out here in Humble, where there is a whole lot of Latinos in apartments that are not counted. Why our district look like it's a plus plus 5 or so Republican. The reason why CDO2 looks Republican is that the people who vote in CDO2 are Republicans. And John, in San Antonio, I imagine the same happened in several of the districts in Bexar County. What we have, or in New York, the same thing. In North Carolina, the same thing. What we have to do is for all these grassroots organizations, and unfortunately, the progressive grassroots organizations that are that are doing a whole lot right now, generally don't look like the people they represent. They have to do what is necessary to incorporate that so that you can go out there and talk to these communities and bring them into the fold and start establishing that voting methodology again. Because that is what's failing right now. If we do that, John, and both Johns I'm talking to right now, if we do that, this is a landslide. And we're coming to the end of the show, so let me give JON a chance to say something to that, and then I'll finish with JOHN. So go on, JON.
Thank you very much. And I also want to shout out to Nisha Randall because she's awesome and I love working with her. But I also want to mention that we do not want to disparage the other side. Right. When we go talking about, when we talk about the elitist, what do you call it, narrative?
Right.
We do not want to give folks a narrative that fires them up and gets them to turn out. And I think that's part of what happened in 2016.
Thank you. You're right.
So we want to stick with, we want to stick with our positive message. We want to speak to the people of our districts. We want to represent the folks who are actually in their houses, that if you want to have the best chance of getting someone to get out and go to a poll and hit the button in the voting booth, you can just speak to them. Talk to them on the phone, knock on their door, talk to them in person. That's what we're going to do. We are going to touch people where they live. We're going to listen to them. We're going to carry their message to Austin.
Excellent, John JON. And before I bring John JOHN in, I want to tell John. John was doing a live feed the other day on Facebook, and I was, I use Facebook as sort of sometimes where you have to take the message based on the people that are listening there. And he was talking directly to the people of his district in a Facebook thing. And I said, hey, you got to come on here. And I love what you're doing, because if you go to his page, you can see that he's doing the things that are necessary in the district, block walking. And all those folks, Rebecca at Swing Left, the local Swing Left, working hard. These guys have organized every single district that touch Harris County, and they are walking these blocks. I think it's every weekend. They go out there and they talk to people, and that is what it's going to take. I'm asking those same people, Rebecca and others that are working with Swing Left, and these other people are trying to activate these areas. Don't forget areas like CDO2. CDO2, it needs you in there as well. So get people here in CDO2 to kind of help you come out here and do that job as well. And I imagine John can talk to areas that has the same issues in Bexar County. Come on in, John, and then close her up for me.
Okay, just two things real quick. One thing is I disagree with you slightly about voting in primaries. I mean, I don't think that most of the time there isn't polling, so you really don't know how a leftist candidate is going to do against, let's say, a congressman or even a senator.
Granted.
You just don't know because there's no polling out there. So I'd say vote your conscience in the primaries, move people to the left. And the other thing, this other point, I hope it's not a contradiction of what I just said, but I mean, when you talk about Ossoff and he didn't have a progressive message, he has people. You have to, that district, they had people that were more progressive running in the primary, and Ossoff won.
Right.
And so, certain districts are just not as progressive as others. I mean, and I'm hopefully that will change. But I mean, for right now, when you have a centrist candidate who wins, it's because they won a primary.
Look, I want to respond to that, but I can't. I want to respond to that, John, but I can't right now because we're out of time. But you brought up a good point, and I have a good answer to that, but I'm not right now. We'll talk about that on another show. But look, John, JOHN, thank you for always being here. You always bring us the numbers and the proper narrative. And JON, I wish you all success in your race, and I hope that what you go out there and do is be a template for what other folks need to be doing. Other progressive progressives in the area who want to be on the show, give me a shout. And as long as you're progressive, you have my ear and you can be here. If you're not really progressive, don't really bother. But I mean, if you're progressive, moving us forward, that's what we're talking about. Folks, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Please remember, support our programs. We need to be out here doing what we do. And most importantly, share in every single social domain and emails that you have. Thank you so kindly for listening. And I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.